in Rochdale, do believe that, there is so much that we have so much talent in these communities, but unfortunately a lot of that talent tends to leave town and rarely looks back. But through this foundation, I really hope that we will be able to bring some of those personalities back to Rochdale. People who may not be Rochdalian but have a very strong connection with Rochdale. And look, each of us are on our own journey. I'm on my journey, Aneel is on his journey, and many of you are on your own. But I think it's very important that we take Rochdale with us on that journey, because not everyone will have the opportunities that we have. And I think it's very, very important that when we're climbing up that ladder to what some may call success, that we leave that ladder there so that people can follow us behind. So on that note, I'd like to move on to talking about our speaker, who I've had the pleasure of going on various journeys with as well. So firstly, thank you so much on behalf of everyone in this room, and on behalf of everyone that will be watching this as we share the recording of your journey as well. Aneel, for those of you that probably, I don't think there's anybody in this room that doesn't know you, but those that don't, born and bred in Manchester, has a significant property business which expands away from Manchester, actually, across the United Kingdom. But there is also a very special story about Aneel actually investing in Rochdale as well. So that is why having Aneel here today is really an inspiration for people in Rochdale as well. Now, I want to talk about, in fact, let's take it right back to the beginning. So your early years. Tell us about your early childhood, your teenage years. Let's start from there.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. So before I start talking about my childhood, I'd like to say a little bit about BPF. BPF started over a decade ago in London, in my home in London. Asif from Gunwala and Seda Varsi and a bunch of other trustees came to my home. We had this idea about setting up BPF, and I have to say it's come a long way, BPF, and I'm so pleased that BPF have opened their first chapter in the north and in Rochdale. And there's two very dynamic and versatile people who are spearheading it here in Rochdale, Zach and Atifa. So I think BPF will really blossom. And it's a very respected organisation. And I think it's got a long way to go. So I would urge everybody to work with BPF and capitalise on what it can deliver. Also, Atifa, I'm very humbled that you've invited me here, so please, it's my privilege and honour to come here. And also, I want to congratulate our Lord Mayor, Mr. Asim, on his 22nd wedding anniversary today. So can everyone give him a huge round of applause? My friend, Member of Parliament, Tony, thank you so much as well for coming, and everybody else, the respected guests. So I'm going to go right back to 1969. I was born in Manchester. Sadly, my father died when I was 9 years of age. May Allah grant him the highest place in Jannah, inshallah. So my father was in the textile business with my uncle. So with my father's estate, share of his warehouse, my dad's elder brother and my mother buy 4 houses. So my mother was a typical Pakistani housewife in the early 80s, because my dad died in the late 70s, 79. And those language barriers, I was the eldest one in the family. So I would help my mother look after the houses, that she had 4 houses. So I'd go with her to collect the rent checks, I'd help her clean the houses in the summer when they were being re-let. I would do whatever I could, and I enjoyed doing it as well, to be honest. So as I was going into my teens, I'd literally look after the houses myself. I'd go on my bike or on the bus to collect the rent checks, and I enjoyed doing all of that. So when I as I was growing up, I'd look after the houses, and while I was at school, I was struggling. I was not very academically bright, but I loved looking after the houses. So when I did my, back in the day, some of you may remember O-levels, I did not pass them. So I retook them in when I was 17 again, and I just about scraped through my O-levels and CSEs. So I left school, and I managed to buy my first house when I was 18 with a 95% mortgage. It was very easy to get a mortgage back in the day. So I bought my first house with a 95% mortgage, and so this was in 1989, and I only needed a £1,200 deposit, and I let that house out. And then from 1989 to 1997, I bought and sold a lot of small houses in Manchester, Bolton, Longside, Openshaw, Moston, Russia, you know, all those areas. I bought and sold about 1,000 houses. So, and I really enjoyed the job. I really enjoyed it a lot. I bought them, rented them out, sold them, and I found my niche, and I blossomed in that. So that's how I got to property business by default.
And keep hold of the mic. Can you still hear me if I
Yes,
just talk like this?
use the mic, so.
Whose voice is louder, mine or yours?
Yours.
It depends what I'm talking about. Apparently, if I'm passionate about something, my voice is really loud, and if I'm not, it's just pretty quiet. So you know that's how it works with me. And so, how old are we talking now? By the time that you had started to buy these houses and so on, how old were you?
So I was 20. So between 20 and 27, I bought and sold houses in Manchester, and then, like all of us, as you get good at one aspect of your job, you want to grow into the next aspect of your career. So then from 97 to 2007, I'll use that as a block. I experimented other areas of business. So I started to buy land to build houses. I bought shopping centres, I bought offices, I bought retail, I bought student accommodation. I built a very large property portfolio. And that was all organically grown between 97 and 2007. I built a property portfolio worth about £1 billion sterling approximately. And I had funding from 21 banks and building societies of about just under 600 million, all organically grown. And how I was able to do that, I was only 30, by 2007 I was only 36. I truly believe United Kingdom is the land of opportunity. If you work hard, if you try hard, doors naturally open for you. So, at the age of 35, 36, I managed to build a very, very large property portfolio funded by 21 banks and building societies. Then came the big financial meltdown. I don't know if you all remember it, at the end of 2007. So, should I carry on talking about that?
No, I'm going to pause you there for a second because, you know, going to banks, you know, you're talking about 21 institutions. Now, for many people, and probably myself as well, you know, taking that first step is quite daunting, you know. So where did that confidence come from? When you were going to have that conversation, what was it, you know, how did you tackle that conversation, and what advice would you give to people that want to take just that first step? So there'll be people in this room who've probably got 1 or 2 properties, so for them to now step it up, you know, what advice would you give that you kind of gave your 35-year-old self?
So, good question. When I was looking after the 4 family houses, so I'd collect the rent, paying at the bank, so I'd walk into the bank, so I had the confidence of dealing with a bank in my early teens. But obviously, then I took my first mortgage when I was 18. I just walked into a building society and said to the I said to the lady on the counter, can I meet the branch manager? She said, why? I said, I want to buy this house. She said, I can help you. No, I said, I'd rather meet the branch manager. Because what I worked out was, when I was banking, when I was running the portfolio, the 4 houses we had, it's always useful to deal with the senior person, whichever organisation you're dealing with, the seniors you have access to. So I just spoke to him. I said, buy this house. He said, I could do a 95% mortgage, so I took it. So just one thing led to another. Then obviously I could only get 1 or 2 mortgages. I needed a proper bank to bank me. So I remember Barclays Bank, this area manager, I wanted to meet him because he's the senior guy who ran probably 20 branches. So I remember having a meeting with him. I rang him, probably his secretary, probably at least 50 times to get an appointment to see him over a 3-month window. And when I did meet him, he said to me, I'm meeting you because you've been very persistent for such a long time. How can I help you? I said, I want to buy these 2 houses and I want an overdraft so I can buy and sell houses. He said, what do you want? I said, this is in 1991. I said, I want £100,000. And he said, what equity have you got? I said, nothing. He said, I can't give you 100,000, but I'll give you 50,000. That's my power to lend you. So I took the 50k, and soon I took him, within a year, I took him up to 250,000. So basically, I persistently knocked on the door with the right proposal, doors open. So, and I've done that all my life. And then if you have the right business proposal, you do get the right backing. But you have to, I've had many proposals that I've had even today, when I want to have funding for a project. Now obviously the projects are much more significant. Some banks will say no, but then I go to the next bank and he will say yes. Many times when I go, even today, when my colleagues, I have a team of people who run this area of the business for me, when they get a decline from the bank, I speak to the chief exec or senior executive in the bank, I represent it and then he approves it. So experience does count, it makes a big difference, but one thing is you never ever give up. So, and then you always sell your track record, this is what I've done. So, if you get rejected, if you get said no to, doesn't mean it's over, you keep on trying and trying. And I get rejections all the time, even today.
In fact, keep hold of that. So persistency is a characteristic, I think, for people, and that's one of the tactics that you use. What other characteristics do you think that you had, perhaps as a young individual, or and as you sort of developed in your life, that has helped you along the way?
My dad's elder brother was a great guy. He lives in Pakistan, Karachi, late 70s. He was a great mentor, inspirational figure for me. One thing he taught me was to have self-discipline. Because growing up, like every teenager, even in my early 20s, I couldn't wake up till 9, 10 o'clock, get out of my bed or get out of the house. He said, you're not going to get anywhere if you're going to not be self-disciplined. So, things like that, self-discipline is a very, very important characteristic. So, I'm so disciplined. I'm up every day at 6 a.m. Even today I was up at 6:30, I think. And I left the home at about 7:15. I went to the office. So self-discipline is a very, very important characteristic. Just like Zahid Bhai, he's very hardworking and self-disciplined. Thank you.
And so now going back to sort of as you sort of been scaling the business, has it been fairly straightforward? Like we talked about, up until the crash, you didn't go into too much about the crash, but did that affect you, or was it kind of plain sailing from there on?
So the financial meltdown was I was only 36, and it was an astronomical episode of my life. And for a lot of businesses, I owed the bank £600 million approximately, and the banking system globally was on the verge of collapsing. And banks became very, very tough and hard. And I thought, I'm going to be in deep trouble now. And I started to get into trouble at that time, so very high level. I had £600 million worth of borrowing. Out of that 600 million, £200 million of personal guarantees. I, alhamdulillah, managed to navigate my way through all of that journey, 4 years, without going bankrupt. It's unbelievable how I managed to get all those personal guarantees released. I just can't believe it. And I think if I break down to two or three things why that happened was, number one, had a very good team around me, because at many a times I was getting fed up, wanting to give up, was scared, many things like that, as crosses through everyone's mind. But they inspired me, encouraged me, supported me. And number two, we gave enormous amount of cooperation to all of our lenders, so they supported us. And finally, number three, which is the most important one, is as a Muslim, I truly believe in Allah's blessings, du'as that you make to Allah for His guidance, support and help. So all that fell into place. I managed to navigate my way through there. But it was a very, very tough journey, because we're all scared of, I am scared of embarrassment, humiliation, failure. You know, we don't like that. I certainly don't like it. So that was a scary part, but I managed to get through that. Then obviously the entrepreneurial side of me was gearing up again. And from January 12th to today's date, we've really expanded the business, probably 4 times larger, alhamdulillah. And we've been focused on not making the same mistakes, focused on assets that can stand the test of time. Primarily, I've been focused on affordable housing up and down the country, industrial warehouses and student accommodation. Student accommodation less, but affordable housing, industrial and serviced offices. So when COVID came, should I talk about COVID?
Yeah.
So when COVID came on March 21, I said, oh my God, back to the financial meltdown. So that was a really, really scary time again, when it all kicked off March 21. No one had an idea what was going to happen. Obviously, it started to build up in early March, what was happening, but by March 21, we were in a lockdown. And we had no idea what was going to happen. No one had any idea what was going to happen. Everyone thought it could be a temporary phase. So the first thing then is to make sure you stay alive, and your family, your loved ones, your friends are all fine to stay alive. But just to give you a snapshot of since COVID started on March 21, I've worked 7 days a week. I've been in the office. I've only had 4 days off since COVID. I've been in the office every day, whether it's in London, Manchester, Birmingham, whichever office. And my key colleagues, FD, managing director, they've all worked 5-6 days. They've been very, so right at the beginning of COVID, there's only, so usually we employ about 450 people in all of our offices. So we closed all the offices except Manchester. And we only had about 6 people in there. Everyone was working from home. So once again, we showed a lot of resilience, hard work. Alhamdulillah, coming out of COVID, the business is in a much better place. We picked the right assets, we stuck to the right asset class, and UK government, the British government's done a great job in underpinning the UK economy. So, once again, this is the land of opportunity. The harder you work, the luckier you will get. I've had enormous amount of opportunities through COVID. I've had enormous amount of support. We've come out healthier, stronger and better. And I do think the next 2 or 3 years we're going to see a big, big boom in the UK economy.
Fantastic. And given we've talked about, things that have happened, that have been beyond your control, and they've been quite challenging for you. Many people say that property is a safe investment. So say you're a doctor, you're earning like a locum, a day rate, you're a contractor in IT, or you're working out the country, so you're an expat, and there's all this tax-free money that you're earning. Would you say it's a safe place to put your money? And if possible, could you go further to say, could you provide advice on where people could put that money?
I get asked this question quite a lot. So what I say to all my friends, family, always buy houses or flats and rent them out on a buy-to-let, excuse me, you'll never ever go wrong. I regret selling all the houses I bought in 1989 to 1997. If you buy a house or a flat, stick to that. If you're not a seasoned or experienced property investor, don't go anywhere else except affordable, low-cost housing. Rent it out, you won't go wrong. If you're an experienced property investor, then you can try other areas of business like we venture into all the time. Shall I talk about reshoot? What the story there?
Well, that was actually my next question, because you own bits of property in Rochdale, and like you said, you also own the Wheat Sheaf Centre. You know, what did you think when you bought it, and what you were going to say as well, but also about, you know, sort of opportunities, you know, for Rochdale?
Okay, so Wheat Sheaf is a big piece of real estate. In 2006, somebody paid £30 million to buy the Wheat Sheaf, and then the bank foreclosed on them, and we managed to buy it off the bank for £1.5 million. So I thought, I'm buying something at 95% discount for what someone paid in 2006. It is a very, very low cost asset. But obviously it had a lot of ongoing liabilities to keep open, and so we thought, because the whole new centre with the new shopping district that's just opened, the town hall, the tram station, so it's becoming part of the epicentre of Rochdale. So what we decided was to buy it and make it a cheaper version of the main shopping district. It's called the Riverside. So we thought it'd be much lower cost retail there. But then came COVID. We shut the Wheat Sheaf down permanently because no tenants were virtually left there. So we thought, it's a big piece of real estate, what will we do? Because of our vast experience, we have a very big, versatile team. We approached the council, and the council have been very collaborative with us. We are working with the council. We've made a scheme now to put on, knock it all down and put about 400 apartments on it, low cost affordable housing. Phase 2 of Riverside is where they're building 250 apartments at a hotel, so we're going to join, will be phase 3. So working in collaboration with the council and the Brownfield grant option, we're looking to pursue that because there'll be a huge gap funding required. So we're going to redevelop it as residential. I like Rochdale. I do think it's a very affordable place because Manchester city centre is getting very expensive, and I think Rochdale's going to have its day now. So we are looking at lots of logistics. I'm looking at the old factory, the factory on, I forget the name of the road here in Rochdale. It's closed down. It's got a lot of asbestos in it for housing. Yeah. So we're looking at that location, but the clean-up cost is very high. So Rochdale plan to do more affordable housing, and we are looking at a number of opportunities around Rochdale.
Fantastic. I think it's quite important to note, actually, because you talk about opportunity, you talk about this being the land of opportunity, and I think what we're seeing here is an example of somebody who has taken those opportunities, built your personal life, built your business life, and now actually the output of that is actually helping a community like Rochdale. Because actually, you know, I know this, and you know, and people in this room will know this. You could quite simply sit back on a beach in Dubai, and you could be buying things in, you know, other emerging countries around the world, but you've always focused on the UK. So I think, you know, that is something remarkable. But also, there's a big lesson in that. I think, you know, giving back has probably helped your success. Like you said, you know, at the end of the day, you're Muslim and you believe in God. And talking about giving back, you know, you do a lot outside of property as well. You do a lot in the philanthropy space, in charity, looking after your community. What motivates you to do that outside of your business life?
Like you touched on it, it's part of our religion. On top of that, I really enjoy doing the work that I do for charitable and community work, I really get a lot of satisfaction from it. So currently, I'm in Manchester City Centre, right, I don't know, some of you guys might know the DM Digital facility, so we bought that, we're turning that into a homeless shelter, and with a facility on the ground floor with for NHS drop-in centre for people that live in the city, targeting the homeless community, and hopefully we'll be able to give them food packs and positive things like that. So we're in for planning to turn that building into a homeless shelter. And in Pakistan, I'm building a hospital. That'll be one of many hospitals, inshallah, I hope. Healthcare in third world countries is very poor, so whatever I can do to play my part is a huge privilege and honour. So personally, I get enormous amount of satisfaction, inspiration, and may Allah accept her. So I think if you give, it's in our religion, you get back many folds more as well. So I enjoy doing that, to be quite frank. And regarding business, I'm from a humble background. So in the UK, we're building about 7,000 homes right now, from Edinburgh, Glasgow, all the way down to Worthing, South Coast. So we create a lot of employment. So during COVID, all of our construction sites stayed open, and housing market, as we all know, is on a major boom. And so we create employment via the developments, give back to the community. And why I've never really ventured outside the UK is, I know the market here, I've got an infrastructure here, I've done the odd small investment abroad, but nothing significant. I like working in the UK, I like the system, it's good.
Now, you might not have ventured outside of the UK, but your network does take you globally, and many are aware of your special, the special place that Pakistan has in your heart. Being in property, I think many people, particularly in towns like Rochdale, particularly our younger generation, have families that own land in Pakistan. There's a lot coming up in terms of development. We've got the government in place now. What would you say to people who are looking to invest in Pakistan, or young people whose parents maybe have land in Pakistan? Should they leave it, retract, sell, and bring the money back here, or should they continue to invest?
So, affordable housing globally, there's an acute shortage. So if we just talk about Pakistan's got a shortage of approximately 15 million homes, and it's got a demand of nearly 1 million homes per annum. So there's an enormous amount of opportunity there, and Prime Minister Imran Khan understands that. He's very keen to facilitate development. He wants people to be able to own their own homes by getting mortgages. And there's a scheme that's going to be announced shortly where the government will guarantee loans to developers and mortgages from a certain percentage, like it does here in the UK, to make the housing market freely available to everybody. So if you have the expertise, the knowledge, Pakistan's a good place to develop affordable housing. There's a lot of government facilitation available, lots of tax breaks, and the Prime Minister personally is very keen and keeps doors open for that sort of investment. And there's major land reforms, legal reforms that are on the way. So it makes people who own land, who have got challenges around the land, because I generally get a lot of requests, I pass them on to the Prime Minister's office to help them out with their land problems, and they're working very hard to fix those issues.
Absolutely, and that's also something that we've been helping people with here through the Community Hub as well, and have been quite successful with your support and some of our other friends as well. So that again, if you do have issues around that, do reach out to the Community Hub, so that we can help you with problems, I guess, like that, because they can be quite daunting, especially if you don't go to Pakistan that often. Now, we're coming to the end, and we will take questions, hopefully, from the audience as well. I know you have a wedding to go to as well, so we'll start to wrap things up. How important do you think mentoring is And did you, I know you talked about your uncle being a mentor, but how important do you think that is?
Mentoring is very, very important. I've had a lot of role models, my uncle, Imran Khan, lots of people have been my role models. So, me personally, I would say I've had over 100 role models, mentors, and what I've learned from my role models is how I approach that situation is I take the best from them and how I can implement that in my own personal life, so I can try and get the best out of everybody, myself, and implement it in my own personal life. Because I left school at the age of 17, I had no university degree, no training, I didn't work in any organisation, so I learned everything as I went along. So you must always be willing to learn, have an open mind, and try and learn as much as you can from your mentors, from your role models. That's my request and counsel to everybody.
Thank you. Now, to finish up, you've given us lots of lessons, but what are your 5 key lessons for people?
So, the first one is never ever give up. We always face challenges, obstacles, hurdles. Try and deal with those hurdles in a calm way, but don't give up, because if you give up, then the game's over. So never ever give up. Number 2, dream. Have that creativity about dreaming, but dream with goals. So you have goals that you make them your goals, so you can try and achieve them. Number 3, there's no substitute to hard work. Hard work hides a lot of weaknesses, failures. So if you work hard with a focused attitude and consistently, persistently, that is very, very important. No point working hard today, then not working hard for 2 weeks. You have to be persistent in your hard work. Number 4, you've got to love what you do, because if you love what you do, then you're super confident. And having confidence is very important, especially when you're dealing with third parties. If you're not confident, then you don't get very far, I'm afraid. And finally, discipline. Self-discipline is very, very important. So that means you have to make personal sacrifices. You have to trade off on personal desires that you want to do in order to succeed. So you have to have a rational and logical approach to everything. So, and finally, there's one important point that I like following now, that I've started to follow, which is self-policing. So self-policing is very important. P stands for being polite to people that are lesser than you, less privileged than you. Be obedient to your work ethic, that's very, very important. Be loyal to your friends and family. Be intelligent in your decision making. Be confident in yourself and what you're doing. And finally, be efficient, E for the above. So you have to be efficient in everything you do, because life just goes by if you're not efficient. So once again, Atifa, Zach, and everybody, thank you for inviting me. I'm very grateful. I hope you found this useful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So do we have time for questions? Yeah. We'll take some questions if we have some in the audience. I know we have one particular gentleman who's been preparing for this question for quite some time. So shall we take that one, or do we need a few minutes?
He's a bit shy, so we'll try.
Questions from the audience. We have one at the back. We may.
Should we call you up?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, great, fantastic. I need to thank our team for Rochdale. It's fantastic to see. It's my hometown of all our working Manchester British representatives, you know. It's great to see a Muslim in your position, a Pakistani origin person who's actually making a difference. So thank you for that. My question is this: there are lots of people that work very hard who are Pakistani Muslims, whichever against you want to turn yourself to. They got their degrees, they're carrying their parents out and so forth, things like that. But a lot of them are still struggling here by the gas is making through to the mainstream. Maybe not business, becoming policy writers, becoming getting to funded education, becoming head teachers, divisional commanders, etc., etc. What would your advice be? Because they feel there's structural racism. I'm not clear whether you understand the structural racism or not, discrimination. If it really is for my own benefit, how did you overcome that structural racism discrimination? If you faced it, I'm not saying you did, you may not have, but if you faced it, how did you overcome this old disease of racism discrimination in our society, which many Muslims and Pakistanis feel exists? It keeps them down no matter how hard they work.
That's a very good question, and I have to say, in my walk of life so far, I've ignored racism that comes towards me, that I face. I've just ignored it, blank it out, because I don't let that be a hurdle to slow me down. So if I do sense, if I go to a new meeting, or to do a new presentation, or something like that, if I do sense there is some prejudice, I try even harder to break that barrier down, very hard, knock down, knock down, knock down. Sometimes you can't knock it down, it's just not possible. I don't waste my time feeling sorry for myself that I've got prejudice and racism. I just move on to try and find another door that I can open. Unfortunately, a lot of people say there is prejudice and racism. I ignore it personally, because I think that's just going to slow me down in my vision, my mission. So my counsel to anybody who ever says that to me is to try and ignore it, try and find a way around it. Because if you're going to let that become an obstacle, a hurdle, like I said earlier on, you're giving up. There's no point in giving up. So never ever give up, keep on marching on. Overall, personally, what I've experienced, because I've dealt with a lot of people, you know, to give you a bit of a vision, I probably bought and sold £4 billion worth of assets in the UK. I'm building nearly £2 billion worth of houses right now. So, I'm sure I've got employees who work for me who have prejudice and racism, because the odd comment they might come out with. But, you know, you have to just live with it. Overall, the numbers I've just shared, what I've done, that's only possible in this country because it's a reasonably level playing field. And the harder you work, the luckier you get. I have obstacles every day. I'm 51 years of age. I've been working for over 32 years. I have obstacles in my way even today. I don't give up. I don't say, I'm going to put my boots on now, retire. No. I consider every day to be a new day, new vigor, new energy. I'm a human being. I do get knocked back a bit psychologically, then I pick myself up. So the key message is never ever give up.
We have another question for her Councillor Robin Parker.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to come tonight and listen to what you've had to say. I don't think anybody in the room can fail to be impressed and respect what you've achieved in your life. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Robin and I are members of the campaign the Seven Sisters flats in the centre of Rochdale, and it's interesting to hear your opinion about Rochdale and your involvement in Rochdale as well. We'd be very keen to explore. We understand that there may be some interest in being involved in serving the development of the Seven Sisters, and We're very keen to meet you. We're going right to the top, like you just suggested a few moments ago, right to the top, to sit down and explore the possibilities that there are for saving and developing the Seven Sisters flats in terms of affordable housing and social housing, and possibly mixed tenure.
The Seven Sisters is the is that where RBH is?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, that's the one.
I can't say too much about it because last time I did to one of the councillors I got told off. The next day on the email by my colleague. But if you speak to RBH, I think they're engaging with my colleagues.
They are.
Yeah.
Would there be any possibility of sitting down with yourself to have a chat about the possibilities? We're very engaged with the community.
It'd be my pleasure.
That's fantastic. How do we do that?
So,
We can help you with that. Yes.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
pleasure.
We
Next
have,
question, Councillor Khalid.
Councillor Khalid at the back.
Walaikum Assalam.
Good to see you. Welcome to Rochdale. In my life as a councillor, and just generally as a resident of Bury, I've come across a lot of entrepreneurs, young Muslim men, young Muslim women who are entrepreneurs. But increasingly, these young people are learning about the Quran and learning about the Hadith, the life of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his teachings. And many of them want to go into property, they want to go into online businesses, but they don't want to access funds, finance from banks because it's not Islamically compliant, it's not Sharia compliant. So my question is in two parts. One is, what would you advise those young people to do? And secondly, would you perhaps consider sitting with, Islamic scholars or people who are in the field of providing Sharia compliant finance to get these young men and women into business, and hopefully they can become new Aneel Mussarats in Manchester and in Rochdale.
So, I'm always happy to help anybody I can, because lots of people have helped me on my journey so far in 32 years of being in business. UK, London, New York are the epicenters of capital. London is a very smart square mile, the city. They understand Sharia compliant products is going to be the way forward. It's a big market. So there are a lot of lenders, including British banks, and there's lots of Arabic banks that are doing Sharia compliant products. As a group, we borrow from multiple lenders who do Sharia compliant products. I had this issue about borrowing from banks. I've sat with many scholars myself to get clarity of thought. So the interpretation I got comfortable with it. But everyone has their own school of thought. They follow their own interpretation. But who wants a strict Sharia compliant funding line? There are many products available now in the market if you go looking for it.
Thank you. We're going to take one last question, and Councillor Shah was here.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming to Rochdale and giving us such information and wonderful profile. Being a counsellor, but I'll ask you a question on my career, which is in education, both in further and higher education. Rochdale is best resource strong in all of Manchester, because we got the best six-month college, which is at #1 in all of UK. But those talent and resources, when they move to universities, they never come back to this town. So if you do investment, you will never go wrong, because you've got the best resource, the best knowledge in the town, which is offering the best dividend as well. I mean, we got British Pakistani network, and they were asking, they are trying to find out what is going wrong with the Pakistanis, British. That is one thing, that they have the talent, they have the education and resources, but unfortunately, they don't have something to match here, they have to move out. So you are so surprised to know so detail about your investment into Rochdale. I think perhaps you will leave that to your organization. But as a boss, you knew everything spot on, because I'm on planning and I know what is going on. So would you consider this done to further investments where you got the resources, where you got the best return, and it makes every sense to do the business here?
Okay, so two things. First of all, you talked about sixth form college education. Just because, I just want to touch on a separate note here, just because I left school doesn't mean education is not important. I think education is extremely important. I'm very pleased to say my three daughters, the eldest one did a double masters from London. She did one master's at Cass Business, they went to LSE, both my daughters then did their masters at Cass Business School. My third daughter, I'm pleased to say, was going to UCL in London. So education is very, very important. And so I'm very pleased to hear that the sixth form college in Rochdale is very, very good. I think with the Rochdale Council now and the leaders, the councillors, the chief exec's office, they are doing a pretty good job to make Rochdale Town Centre regenerated, and other areas of Rochdale like the employment hubs, the employment zone areas. So you're doing a pretty good job to create more jobs, more opportunities, and I think this decade Rochdale will significantly improve, because Rochdale is placed in a very, very good location between Manchester and Leeds. You know, the two very good, strong economic hubs there. You're sandwiched between them, so there will be a lot of spill out from those two between Leeds and Manchester. You will do extremely well. The demographics are all in your favour. And talking about, I know so much about my scheme. So I've got about 150 live projects. I know pretty much everything about each project because I love my job. So that's why I said earlier on, if you love your job, sky's the limit. Thank you very much. I think the gentleman there with the blue tie wants to ask a question.
Yes, thank you very much.
Salvatore.
Aneel, why everybody has praised you, and I'm not, but subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with one thing, that you are a good human being, and a moral person.
I hope so.
And then just one or two questions I had really. The gentleman earlier on mentioned about the unemployment figures. The community hub, if you would like to tell us how you've actually done your mapping nationally over the 10 years that you mentioned about the Pakistani situation. That's very important. And the other one is, I think, the 450 people that you employ, it's not a trick question. How many of them are actually Pakistani?
Do you want to take the 451 and I'll answer the other one?
Yeah, so the 451, I would say Pakistani would be 15 and 5 maybe Indian. So I would say and probably 10 black people. So that's where I think our ethnic profiling would be. I don't do the recruitment directly. I probably interviewed in my career in the last 10, 20, 15 years, probably one person. Because what I've learned is that everyone's CV will say a beautiful story. And when they come in the interview, they'll be best well behaved and performing. So I believe in action. You could work out if someone's good in within 3 months, 1 quarter. So that's where we are.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
The Mayor would like to ask a question, so this will be our final
This
question.
is not a question, because
Would you like the mic, sir?
already.
It's not longer.
Up behind.
First of all, I'd just to welcome Brother Aneel to Rochdale Borough Council. He just explained everything. I think he's done a wonderful work. He's a successful businessman. I think as a British Pakistani, he's a role model for our British Pakistanis. So I have one request or advice, if you take it. As you mentioned about the young generation connectivity with Pakistan, because obviously our youth is very important in future that we bring our youth with Pakistan. So when we talk about the investment in Pakistan, so obviously there is some kind of scary stories or something already there. So you are very close to Imran Khan, and Imran Khan is very keen to work with the youth. So is it possible you can just give them advice about, as a British Pakistani youth, so we can have some kind of joint venture from the government of Pakistan, so they can give us some financial investments, and then we can bring our youth, encourage our youth to invest in Pakistan. So there'll be, I think, more satisfaction and security that the government of Pakistan is one of the joint ventures, part of joint venture. So as you talk about affordable housing, you talk about the retail business. So some kind of businesses we talk, and we can give them some security. Is this possibility, if you can talk about this one?
Yeah. So if you want to collaborate with the Pakistani government, I can introduce you to whichever ministry you'd like to go to. If you're talking about youth, I can introduce you to the youth minister, Osman Dar, who's a good friend of mine, or anybody else you want to be introduced to, be my pleasure. If you think there's some collaboration there that you'd like to do. So if you're planning a trip to Pakistan, I'd be delighted to facilitate your meetings. Or I think as Pakistan comes off the red list, which I hope very soon.
Tony is trying his best.
And when it comes off the red list, then I'm sure a bunch of these ministers will be coming to London. Then I always request them to come to Manchester. So I'm very happy to set up a meeting, or even bring them to your office.
That will be good. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Yes, I was about to. Tony, would you like to? I had the pleasure of fighting an election with Tony, and whilst we were on opposite sides, but like to say, we're still very good friends. So welcome, Tony.
Thank you. Let me say, actually, it was a pleasure to fighting an election with you against you, and as you say, we stay respectful of each other, and that's as good human beings we should do. But I really just want to say a very big thank you to Aneel Bhai. It is a pleasure. I've known Aneel now, I think, for a good number of years. In a way, what you saw tonight was a lot of modesty. For a man who's achieved so much. And it is that modesty that I think is the hallmark of the good human being, that it isn't about self and self-promotion, it's about delivery of the values and the things that we believe in and we care for. So, Aneel, in saying a very big welcome, or a continuing welcome here in Rochdale, let me also give you my great thanks for the work that you've done and will continue to do for our society.
Thank you very much. Just before we finish, we talked about some of your, 5 key tips, etc. And amongst them was one around mentoring. What I'd like to do today is also announce the Community Hub's property mentoring scheme. So for those of you that are looking to get into property, whether that is through social and affordable housing, whether that's just looking at your own portfolio and thinking about how you can grow that, we have with us Seth Rahman here. He is from Oldham, but is lending a lot of his time to Rochdale and will be our lead here at the Community Hub. And what Seth will do, he's a property portfolio builder, so he has spent the last 5 years, he's actually an accountant turned property developer, and I'm sure he would, really benefit from some of your advice. But he has, really sort of built his business over the last 5 years and learned pretty much, any question I ask him, and I have a background in real estate as well, any question I ask him, he always has the answer to. So he's definitely the right person, and that mentoring scheme is absolutely free of charge, and it's available to you through the Community Hub. So feel free to get in touch with us. All the details here are there. It now leaves me to thank you personally once again on behalf of everyone here. We're truly humbled to have you in Rochdale. There was a question about you investing in Rochdale and whether you continue to. I think as long as we know you, Tony knows you, and some of your friends here. We will make sure that Aneel Bank continues to invest in Rochdale. So thank you very much. Would you like to say the last few words?
Atifa, Zach, thank you so much for inviting me. I hope everyone's gained something from this today, and I'm always available to anybody if I can help them in any way. It'd be my pleasure. And finally, I'm going to have to beg leave because I have to go to a wedding in Blackburn. An old friend of mine, her son's getting married, so I have to just go and show my face. So the wedding started at 4 p.m, so I'm just going to go there and show my face. And well, thank you again, Atifa, for inviting me. Thank you.